Liverpool are falling apart. They are in 11th place in the season. They have 6 losses in 7 games. People said it was a blip, but I think we can all agree that the blip train has passed a long time ago. And Slot is starting to feel a little bit of the pressure. And I think it's worth discussing whether or not this is the end of Liverpool's season. They are currently 11th place out of the top 10 after they ended the first 5 games of the season at the top of the table. So we'll be having a quick discussion on exactly why Liverpool find themselves where they are. And also, Erasmus, I'll be asking you whether or not you think the Liverpool hierarchy should start doing a managerial shortlist to try and figure out if the bottom slot continues, how do they respond to it? So, before that, you were just telling me that Spurs wasted our time. How did you find the game? For listeners, for listeners and viewers, we are basically recording right after the Liverpool, the Arsenal Spurs game, the North London derby, and it was, quite boring. So,
yeah, you can imagine that for there's a run of games that Arsenal have, and especially after the international period, if you have a game like the North London derby, which is one of the most competitive and hottest derbies in the world, I think there's a level of anticipation that is built as a result of the time that is left over the international break.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of anticipation, or our desire to have that anticipation, has led us to paper over some of the cracks that we know are within the Spurs team. We were quite comfortable to use records and stats like Spurs being the best away team in the league, which we know means nothing in the context of the North London derby and the current form of Arsenal. And I think that we were left holding on to our fantasy just 5 minutes into the game, and we just saw how Spurs were set up in the first place quite negatively, looked very, very frightful on the pitch, looked like they weren't there to compete or to give Arsenal any challenge. And then you leave the rest of the game feeling like Arsenal really didn't have to break a sweat and to get a comfortable 4-1 victory. They've had harder games this season against Leeds, against United, against even Sunderland than this Spurs team, which is quite concerning if you're a Spurs supporter, and if you are a hater who was doing the hate along. It is quite disappointing, and Spurs is
you were doing the hate along. Stop pointing fingers to
it's not Arsenal is not my team. I know they are a very strong team, so I want them to drop as many points as I can. I want them to lose every game. But there are some games where you think, okay, the chance for them losing is high. There are 2 things I'm watching out for: that they drop as many points and concede as many goals, so that they do not touch Chelsea's record of 15 goals per season.
How much of an effort do you expect? How much of a role do you expect Chelsea to play in this next Sunday?
I think that if we had gone into the game with having Arsenal lost, it would have done a couple of things for that game. One, it would have brought the margins to be quite closer. So you would then expect a huge fight from both of the teams, which means you expect it to be very, very competitive. Secondly, you also have a level of vulnerability within the Arsenal team, given that the game against Sunderland didn't go so well, but it's very easy to write it off and say it's one of those games where we drop points. When you lose 2 in a row, it sort of starts eating into your psyche. And especially when the narrative is that these teams are getting quite close, especially for Chelsea, they would smell the chance to do this. And I think it sort of puts the psychological advantage for Chelsea. But none of this happened, and there's still a 6-point gap. So I think the psychological advantage has flipped in a way. More so still depending on how both of their games on Wednesday go, given that Arsenal face Bayern Munich and then Chelsea face Barcelona. I think it would put a very good picture on the league match that happens next week, because if Arsenal wins, that's a 9-point gap. If Chelsea wins, that's a 3-point gap. But you would think that Arsenal goes in a bit more confident and comfortable Not that they would expect to lose it, but Chelsea wouldn't want to be too far away, especially when they have the opportunity against a direct rival. But I know games at the bridge have stalled between the two, so I sort of see the scenario where it's sort of like splits. But I think Chelsea might be one of the very first teams that gets the opportunity to put a little bit of fear and a little bit of doubt within Arsenal's title race. I think if they do really well, and not just in terms of the results, but even the performance, the results may not even go their way. But if they show and expose the weaknesses in Arsenal, you would see it come over the Christmas break as you now have them having to play back-to-back games, and teams will now start knowing how to prepare for them, because the next round of games after this is the most important, and it's about who gets out of it feeling on top. Yeah.
Interesting. For a moment, I thought you were doing the old Chelsea strategy of, Arsenal are the ones who are on top. Chelsea, we are the underdogs going into the
No,
game.
I'm an objective pundit. I tell you all the time. Just don't believe me.
You which objective pundit? You literally have a blue light. You literally chose to go for a blue light than any other color. You are there telling me you're an objective pundit. But yeah, I think that would be an interesting game to watch. And I mean, you guys have said that, and this is a final question, so we can go back to the Liverpool supporters who are waiting for their tears. But you guys have said when Maresca preps for a game, like it's a one-off game, he's probably one of the best managers you can find on earth. He did it with PSG. He prepped a final, a one-off game, decided to outthink, outsmart, outbully everyone on the pitch and win comfortably. So is he going to go into the Arsenal game as those types of one-off boogie games, think of a masterclass performance for it? Or is it going to be, it's another league game and we have to think about how to survive in the long term within the league?
No, I think first of all, if you look at this Chelsea team, it tends to do quite well within the big games and tends to lose a lot of focus in some of the quote-unquote less important games or games with less important sides.
Yeah.
Case in point, you saw how they performed against Liverpool, who we know about their demise now, but then they were champions, versus what they did in the next home game against Sunderland, where there was absolute lack of concentration. You look at what they did against United, when United was at a point everyone said, well, like Chelsea was so high after winning the Club World Cup, so they were going to smash United. So there's some sort of parallels or irony when it comes to some of these performances. And I think that has been encoded into the belief of Chelsea fans that I would say, from our perspective now, we feel more comfortable entering into these games because we know that the team will come out. Of course, this Arsenal side is also very, very good. I think it's one of the best teams in Europe at the moment. So you can turn up, but if someone is better than you, they would get your advantage. So I think that you are right. Maresca is going to approach this in a similar way. And I'm quite curious because no team has really been able to exploit Arsenal. So these two games will be crucial. The game against Bayern Munich, because then you know that the level of tactical battle that will happen there, you see that some cracks will start being exposed. Yeah. And I think that I will learn a lot from that game, depending on what happens. But also, we'll get the opportunity to see what Maresca has done in terms of his homework, because Maresca's homework has now been sort of like a reflection point against some of the big managers. We saw what he did against the set pieces, and like other people in the league started copying. Yeah. We saw what he did against Slots in Anfield back even when they were on top, and how it influenced other teams to attack. And I'm not saying it's because he's the best manager in the world, but he's one of those that will do his tactical homework on the team. Yeah. And you see him making an attempt to exploit it. So I think we will see some vulnerabilities, but I think this Arsenal team is strong enough to also withstand it. So it's not a guarantee that they will win or anything.
In summary, the Chelsea strategy is Vincent Kompany, win, Chelsea copy and paste.
Yes, just copy. Would you know how beautiful it would be if they just give us the blueprints and then we just go and execute?
Copy and paste. Quick, sharp, sharp. Anyway, back to Liverpool. These were champions of last season. They entered the season with the supercomputers of the world predicting that Liverpool are definitely going to win the league. Obviously, they had players move out, they had players come in. Everybody said all the players that came in were upgrades. In fact, Mohamed Salah had to respond to some social media commentators and say, "Can we respect the champions of last season and celebrate these guys who are coming in at the same time? We don't have to disrespect champions." And just this weekend, everybody's saying, "Well, we missed Darwin Nunes because at least he will put in effort. He will be running. He will be aggressive, and he will cause some chaos. Some chaos. He will let something happen." And Isak is just walking around elegantly on the pitch, like you don't know whether he's going for a beauty competition or something. And people are starting to miss the attitude of the players who were there last season and the fight and the grit and all that. And the quick question we want to ask is, what is really wrong with Liverpool? Because to move from first in game week, 5 to 11th as of now makes no sense. Makes zero sense. Nobody will predict. See, there are downfalls and there are free falls. This one is free fall. This Liverpool decline is a free fall. So what exactly is happening and why are we seeing these chaotic results from them?
So to put in context, this is them losing 3-0 to a Nottingham Forest side who themselves have not been very solid throughout the season. I know they've had a change in manager who's brought in a bit of structure, but it's still not the glistening, shining machine as you'd know it to be last season where they lost this similar fixture. So it begins to tell you that the problem is not necessarily because they are a bad side or the talent is not there. The problem can be more or less systemic. And I think we are always going to pretend we'll come over here, we are great pundits and try and tell the game. And you hear a lot of people try to give their reasons. But most of the time, these problems, no one has a way of understanding them. And the reason why they are this complex is because there are so many factors which are integrated and most of which you will not get a perspective of because you are not in the club. However, I think that there is one angle.
Just before you continue, to put in context, Forest were 19th when they went to Anfield.
That's crazy. Because when you think about Anfield, you just think no matter what's happening to Liverpool, they are untouchable over there. Exactly. And in fact, when you look at the game, they were quite good for about 30 minutes.
30 minutes,
and then after just one goal, it just looks like once they concede, they become so vulnerable. You can see that there is lack of confidence. It's the same players executing the same good routines, but there is a certain lack of confidence. There is a certain lack of physicality, certain lack of connection and drive. And this is not characteristic of a Liverpool team who, you know, sort of like light up the park with their energy, with their pressing, with the way in which they are very forceful about things. So I am actually exploring a piece which I want to record and then put out on the entire Liverpool situation. But I think that's one underrated part of the discussion is how the club as a whole is having to deal with a loss and as huge as the demise of Diogo Jota, who was very, very loved within the community. But for context, every family struggles to deal with grief, and Liverpool Football Club is more than a football club, it's a family. And grief has a way of exposing some of the cracks which exist within an institution. And if you are pursuing an ambitious project or like a huge kind of change, you need an environment that in itself is stable and can be able to absorb the change to a huge degree. And I don't think that environment was created, not that it was their fault, but I don't think that environment was made perfect by them having to deal with the demise. More so, there are many elements in this. It's the timing of the demise in itself. It's the fact that everyone thought they could turn this into some positive energy and use it to gear on the players. But we always forget that we have no control over that. And it could also work just in the opposite way of derailing their season. And I get that it's not spoken a lot within the media because no one wants to harp on about grief. No one wants to put it in the metrics of the media and discussion and performance. But I do think it's playing a huge role. When you come into the community, the feeling that they get, the feeling that is around the club, how they even talk about when you raise it, no one wants to even talk about it. And you can see that it's affecting the mood of the community. So you would expect that it is taking an effect on the mood of the players. And if you think that these are expensive players who have been brought in to integrate and they come and meet this kind of environment, it makes it 2 times harder for them to settle in and find their connections and begin to play like that. And if you even think about you yourself as a player, see how they are talking about Darwin Nunes who left, see how they are worshipping some of these new players. You think about all of the sacrifice and such monumental thing happened and you are expected to move on. And they bring new players and people are excited and they've forgotten about those who are gone. So a lot of emotions being dealt with over here. And that's why I think the problem is very, very complex. Of course, there are different elements to it, but I think this is the part that's just not being spoken about enough.
I mean, so I'm going to put a different perspective on what you just said, right? I think it's true. Dealing with a loss is hard. I also think that the Liverpool community has not forgotten about this. So I think Liverpool fans are the quickest to be able to say the team is still dealing with a loss and everybody should be more lenient on them. So maybe you and I, you in particular, who is a Chelsea fan, you forget every single week. But the Liverpool fans never forget. The 20th minute of every game, they literally use that as a reminder and in respect of Diogo Jota. So the Liverpool fans, who are the most important, who have the most influence on the players, have never lost sight of this context, which means that usually their perspective on the player performances are put in the right context, that this is a team that is still dealing with a loss. The second observation, though, is that a lot of the players who have actually been performing in this Liverpool team, even bar Mo Salah, who I still think people are just treating very, very harshly, because regardless of all his not scoring, Mo Salah prior to this weekend had the third most chances created in the Premier League, behind Bruno Fernandes and Jack Grealish. And these are Jack Grealish, everybody saying he's doing well. Mo Salah is just one chance behind him. But everybody says Mo Salah is the downfall of Liverpool, right? So even with Mo Salah, I don't think he's doing that bad. Maybe he's not scoring as much, but his output within the team in terms of creating chances for others to score would have been his assist numbers would have been much better if the team as a whole were clinical. And then you'd say, oh, his role has changed. He's no more scoring goals, but he's assisting. And everybody will be happy and praising him for adapting. So that's how sometimes football works, right? You need other people to also step up in order for you to get your flowers. If they don't step up, you don't get your flowers. You'll be chance creator, no assist, nothing to your game. But what then happens is all the players who were there last season, who you would say are the ones who are the primary people who feel this loss the most. These players are usually the ones playing better for Liverpool. If you've watched any Liverpool game, these players are actually the ones playing better. The new players who have come in, who you would think that the grief would have much limited scope of effect on them, are the ones who are struggling. Look at Frimpong, look at Kerkez, look at Isak, look at Vets. The only player who is playing well is Ekitike, and even recently, he's been doing a little bit of downward spiral. When you think about it, and you're like, okay, if the players who were the hardest hit by this loss, players who spent years with him in the dressing room, who had formed friendships, bonds, who go out with his families and all that, these players are able to pick themselves up, dust themselves, and try and give it a little bit of a push. What then is the struggle with Vets and Kekes and Frimpong not being able to give that same level of a push.
Yeah, I don't think it's a different argument as much as it's sitting on the spectrum of the case that I'm
Yeah,
making, because when you think about it, also, you've, like I said, you've created, or you have an environment which you are expecting new players to come in there to come and perform, and there
yeah,
is a kind of environment that they are used to. And then the history of Liverpool and what it's shown us is that it has a way of accepting the players who endear themselves towards the crowd. So Diogo Jota was endeared by the crowd. Luis Diaz, even though they weren't part of
yeah,
the core Klopp team, which started at the
yeah,
beginning, is because they come in there, they work very hard, and they're able to win the love of the crowd. And it comes from this level of humility, community connection, right?
yeah,
It comes with sharing the lights, sharing the energy. And I don't think they've had the opportunity to do that because of the kind of environment which is there right now. And it's very hard if you are asked to mourn and grieve for someone, and in as much as you feel the pity, I don't think the depth to which they would have that will be compared to the other players, where the other
yeah,
players would have to find that strength to play from. I don't think you will try and you connect with them and you do all of those things, but you wouldn't feel it. Would the other players feel it towards you? I don't know. Even as a player, what would you prefer, to go in there with your individual motivation, or this entire collective thing where every 20 minutes we are doing this clap, we are recognizing this, and like, you want to feel free to play your football. Like,
yeah,
if you're a player, you want to come and focus on the football. And even there are times where a lot of these emotions can be taxing for a lot of players. Keeping up with it, you want to
yeah,
be able to feel joy, you want to be able to feel all of the range of emotions. And
yeah,
if it doesn't appear that you are given the space to do that, that in itself can limit your expressiveness in there. So I think it comes down to you not finding the connections, the bonds. And of
yeah,
course, we don't sit internally within the club. So we might be overestimating this, but you do get the
yeah,
sense that, like I said, grief has a way of exposing cracks,
yeah,
which makes it really hard. And if you have to deal with a big transition within that moment, it's
yeah.
not the most stable environment. It's change.
There's a quite interesting thing you said, which I'll just come to. But I think, like, if the Liverpool team as a team on a regular basis do not even exhibit that, I think, was it Andy Robertson after their World Cup qualification, who was basically in
Mhm.
tears throughout his interview, saying he just felt that he had to do this for Diogo Jota. And he's not in a Portugal national team. So you would not say that, oh, he's in a national team and the environment is still about Diogo Jota. His only affiliation to Jota is with the club. And to carry that through his national team playing a very, very important World Cup qualifier will tell you that it's obviously heavy in the dressing room, right? For even if it's unspoken, it's like the elephant in the room that nobody's able to like speak about it, but it's there. And you walk into the room and you feel that there's a sense of heaviness in the room. And I think that's essentially how it feels, that he sees that opportunity to basically pour out what exactly he'd been holding back for a very long time. And you think about it, and it's like what you are saying is also very, very, very important and crucial in how energies work or synergies work within teams. Essentially, what you are saying is that, like, the core team who were there last season are operating on an energy level, if in the very best cases of scenario where they are tapping deep into the grief and sourcing out energy from it to give it a push, the new players cannot get there. They can't
We'll never
relate
get
to
there.
them on that energy, and they would never get there. And they cannot also, the old players are also not extending a new form of energy or expunging a new form or neutral form of energy that you could tap into. So they are operating on a different realm, and you have to find a way to meet them somewhere that they are never going to come to. And so you always feel like you are external to them as a block, and you never get that true connection that you want. I think that's a very interesting way of viewing it, because usually people view Liverpool as a club. And this is a mistake that we always do. We universalize everyone in the club and say everyone should respond that way or this way. But from this discussion, it shows you that people will be responding differently. Different sects of people would be responding differently. Some, yeah, we came to meet a sad environment and we have to lend our humanness to it. To others, like Andy Robertson, it's a deep, deep seated grief that they tap into, that drives them, that motivates them, that follows them to their national team football. And those levels of energies are entirely different. That these two sets of players, the new and the old, might not be able to meet at a point of convergence where their energies match each other and get the best out of them. And as tactical as we say football is as much energy and vibe as it
Yeah.
is tactics, right? And it's a very
Yes.
interesting perspective to put on it, actually.
Yes. I do hope I can put that episode together, but for
Yeah,
me, it's not it doesn't explain the entire story. Obviously, tactics and how you play, and we can see the kind of recruitment which they did. You look at Arsenal, and you can see Gabriel went out and they had Hincapié, they have Mosquera, who, even if they are not of the caliber of Saliba and Gabriel, can keep out like 80% of the league strikers. And
yeah,
you even look at, sorry, a club like Chelsea, even despite all of the centre back worries, they still have
yeah,
some good options in there, especially when the players like Badiashile and Fofana
yeah,
come back from injury. You even look at United and they have a few options in there. You
yeah,
think about City, they have a few options in there. But like Liverpool just has Konate and Van Dijk. Like without it, it falls out of the top five for centre
yeah,
back partnerships in the league, and that can't be happening, especially when you've just won the league. And I think
yeah,
it all comes from certain philosophies and decision makings which have come together to just bite them. And I think that
yeah,
for me, maybe this is going down to answer the question of whether Slot will keep his job or not. I think there are
yeah,
two perspectives to uncover here. The first is that he won the league last season. So there is some grace in the bank for him, you would say. And there will be some
yeah,
expectation that he turns around the ship. Like they invested also massively in him. So you'd expect that they back him to uncover it. But you also need to know that club ownerships and business owners, especially, as much as they care about the long term, also think short term. And if
yeah,
you look at the four which they have, and we are comparing it to some of the worst title defenses, and we are talking about
yeah.
Mourinho's Chelsea in 02, in 2012, then you are talking about league level
As
stats
for
won't
that,
get you
as
into
for
the
that
Champions
record,
League.
there, you want them to break it, right? As for that record, you want them to break it, but you don't
Yes, I
want
want them
Arsenal
to
to
really
break
break it, to
you
be
don't want
very
Arsenal
honest.
to break your
Yes,
best
I don't.
defense record.
We need to arrange all of them that way.
You
No,
see your,
but
you see your agenda.
if you are
You
going
come
there,
and tell
then
me
it
that
means
you
you're
are an
thinking about
objective
missing
pundit,
on
but you
Champions
are
League.
here doing Chelsea agenda. Chelsea. You
No,
see
but
your must.
so if they start dropping out of the Champions League spots, that
Yeah,
becomes a big problem. I think that's the point at which someone will be forced to take a decision. And if you are in a club like Liverpool, you're expected to deliver results.
yeah.
That is as simple as that.
Do you think he has up to Christmas to turn things around? Because I'm sure if Liverpool cross Christmas without being in the top eight, I mean, if it's the top eight, crap, being in the top five, they will start having issues with slot.
Yeah, they would, and they've already started having issues with slots. The last time we spoke, we spoke about the transition from this youth based academy system of bringing in
Yeah,
players to sacrificing all of them, selling all of them to get profit to bring in players who are already made. And when you have players who are already made, you don't have any excuse, because unfortunately for him also, you unlike previous seasons with Arsenal, with Man City, you can't say he's had any injuries. I
yeah,
don't think he's had any major injuries so far.
yeah,
You can't say he's not been backed in the markets. You understand? You can't say he's lost a key member of staff. There's nothing that explains this. Like there's nothing that puts him in the category where you say this is a systemic issue. This just looks like him building a squad and him not having a way to get the best out of the squad. It's as simple as that. And he can
Yeah.
say, well, these are not my players, but you used them last season to win the league, and you were
Yeah.
praised so much for your adaptability. And if you're a manager at the top sides, this is what you are demanded to do. Like if it was about giving you the perfect set of conditions, then anyone will become a manager. And when it comes
Yeah.
there, the decisions and the discussions might be more ruthless than we would be thinking.
Interesting. So with everything that's happening, I'm going to do a wild card and we can close with with everything that's happening in Liverpool, with the grief, with the context with which they entered the season, the fact that the players have to basically relive that every 20th minute of every season because they've as a club dedicated that time, and for it to go that deep that they would name him in their season squad and indicate his position as forever. Right, he's not going anywhere. They've retired the number 20 shirt for him. It's gone deep into the club. Would you think that the way to get them out of it will be a return of Klopp?
Ah, that's a very interesting question.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I think if you think about to answer the question, maybe you need to go back to why Klopp left in the first place. One of the reasons he left is he had no energy to give. And if you are calling him specifically to come and fill this energy gap and find a way to bring them together again, then you are asking a question: has he got his energy back? Is he going to
is
have
this
the
what
same issues which
drives
he
him?
previously had?
Is this what will drive him to get his energy back?
Yes, yes, probably. So it's a very close. I don't think it's out of the ordinary. I think if you know top athletes and if you know competitive people, they always miss the game. They always miss the
Yeah.
game. Like as you are here, if you are presented with a straight opportunity to do Worlds again,
Oh, I'm
you
off.
will take it in a heartbeat, no matter how long you've left the game. So you can expect that he still has love for the club and he
Yeah.
wants to come back. But I would assume he'd also want to do it when it's right for him and when the conditions and environment are right. And
Yeah.
we may never know that. We may never know that. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
it's not a better answer than yeah,
Although
but
I know
yeah.
there's no definite answer to it, but if you think about it, it's like, and the reason why I was even saying Klopp is not just the fact that he's a former Liverpool manager. I was thinking of if you want somebody who connects emotionally with a team, if you want a manager who is very, very emotional with a team and very open about how emotional he is with a team and being able to, I think, turn around the team with adversity, I can think of two managers. Jurgen Klopp does it extremely well. Pep Guardiola does it more of using it as fuel to send the team into a mad frenzy and a mad run so that he can get the best out of them. Amorim has shown that he's emotional, but for him, it's about threatening that he'll leave the club. So he is on one category. But if you think about managers who are very, very if you think about managers who are very, very good with being humanizing people, recognizing their grief, getting them out of those elements. Like, look at how Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool dealt with Luis Diaz's issue of his father getting kidnapped and all that. Like, this is somebody who is just used to handling a team in such circumstances and moving beyond the professions to getting the human and bringing them away from those negative emotions. And if I think about a manager in world football now who you will trust that your team is going through an emotional turmoil and you can bring him back, coupled with the fact that he's an ex-Liverpool boss who has been a legend of the club, who just left there not long ago, whose players are the ones who just experienced this trauma, it's like for me as an option for that specific purpose, it's a no-brainer. And it might not even be that bringing him back to manage the club. It might just be that bringing him back to get them together, to sort of get them to speak about the elephant in the room and move beyond it and get it behind them in sense of the amount of hold it has on them. And it might just be in that sense, right? In that purpose. But I mean, if you look at Jurgen Klopp and you look at how he manages individuals, I don't think there would be any better manager you would wish could walk in and help a squad deal with this.
No, yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree.
Yeah. Anyway, this has been our short reaction to the week. Liverpool are freedom fallers now, not freedom fighters. They are freedom fallers. Spurs disappointed everyone because we thought they would do some magic at Arsenal to make sure that next week's Super Sunday clash would be a lot more intense. But now Arsenal use them as a carpet to walk their way to Bayern Munich to go and play their Champions League match, and it's not even funny anymore. Anyway, we've had a quick discussion about Chelsea as well, being second place, what the next weeks of games would look like for them. If Arsenal would be tested, it would be the run of form they would use to go into the Christmas break. And we've also spoken about Liverpool. I think mainly from a perspective that people barely talk about. And Erasmus did a brilliant analysis on why the energies within the club are not aligning and how the lack of alignment might probably be the most difficult thing to break in the Liverpool dressing room. There is obviously an elephant in the room, and the Robertson's outpouring tells us a lot more about how they feel. But that being said, we think that a lot of you have loved the last episode that we did since the Shaft Sports came back. You've definitely enjoyed watching. Leave your thoughts, leave your comments. Let us know, what do you think about Liverpool's season, whether Arsenal can be beaten, and whether Enzo Maresca's genius one-game tactic is what would undo Arsenal's defense and give everyone hope. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode.